Yes. So having spoken about poetry, we begin to, this is the point at which we realize that since poetry is important, we begin to search out those poems of those traditional poems, that go side by side with some traditional stories like Cinderella and Co. We have the poems like Where I Want to Buckle My Shoe. We have the poems like The Incy Wincy Spider. We have poems like Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill. There's so many poems like that. So we use them. We use the poetry books that have been compiled for this purpose. We use them book after book and use repetition over and over and over again. I remember poems that I believe that my interest in language started with my mom's, first her pleasant voice, and then her the way she groomed me with poetry. She would always say poems to me. We'll say poems together. We'll go over and over and over them. When we had, private times, we'll say poems and would enjoy. So I began to enjoy the richness of language. I began to know the difference between regular speech and rich language, and I began to appreciate rich speech, rich speech, rich language. Yes, and that was majorly because of poetry. I haven't seen anybody. I'm yet to see anybody. I'm yet to meet anyone who has a rich base of language, who doesn't have an appreciation for poetry. Somehow they go hand in hand. So begin early on to introduce yourself, begin to expose your children, introduce your children, expose them to poetry, rich poetry. Now, if you have a problem with saying the poems right, which is a reality in our country, if you have a problem, let's say you have a problem with your diction is not perfect, but you want your children to have perfect diction. You want your children to be introduced to those things right from the start. So what you do these days, you just download. Go online and look for the best resources. I mean, you have an array of resources. You do a mini, minimal. Which one do I prefer? As a matter of fact, you don't do a mini, minimal. You play each one and hear it. I'm sure even you can tell someone that sounds educated, sounds proper. You can tell. So you pick out that one, download it, and use it for your children repetitiously. Remember, repetition is order of the day. Repetition is how we teach children. So keep at it. You hear your children. In time, you hear your children begin to appreciate language. You hear them begin to speak in the best of diction. Yes? And then you begin to hear them, as they appreciate language, begin to also make an effort to build their own language, to also give you back the quality of what they're getting.